From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before we delve into the pressing news, let's take a quick look at the latest headlines. Hamas calls for an independent Palestinian government in post-war Gaza and the West Bank during ceasefire talks that so far have ended without a breakthrough in Doha. The U.S. Coast Guard says it spotted several Chinese military warships in international waters, but within the American exclusive economic zone near Alaska. Canada, Finland, and the United States announced an ice pact to build a fleet of polar icebreaker ships as NATO allies fight for influence in the Arctic against Russia and China. Young Kenyans dismissed President William Ruto's decision to sack most of his cabinet, and now some are warning protests and demonstrations will continue unless he steps down. And the European Union says tech billionaire Elon Musk's X platform is misleading users while blue checks for certified accounts, and is also violating the bloc's content rules, which could lead to hefty fines. We begin with the latest from Washington, D.C. The NATO Summit, marking 75 years as the world's premier military alliance, came to a close with a signing ceremony featuring an address by U.S. President Joe Biden as he was flanked by European allies and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. During the three-day summit, the military bloc fortified its unyielding support for Kyiv with the announcement of several military and financial aid packages for the embattled nation. After the signing ceremony, President Biden also gave a rare hour-long solo press conference. The presser came at a time when President Biden is facing growing calls to drop out of the presidential race. Now dismissing these concerns, the president reiterated confidently that he is in fact fit for office. The president took questions from a number of reporters on topics ranging from the summit's communique on China to his fitness to serve as commander-in-chief. Our next report goes into detail.
Around 30 of his European allies on stage to his right, the Ukrainian president to his left, and in a room full of journalists, Joe Biden was at the podium under the spotlight. This was his moment to silence his critics, stamp out dissent, and reassure the Democrats, their allies and voters, that he still has the strength and stamina to be president and beat Donald Trump in November. But then this happened.
Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
This moment not just caught the European leaders in the room off guard, but also Biden himself. The 81-year-old U.S. president quickly realized that he misspoke and corrected himself. But this was not the only gaffe. Then came Joe Biden's press conference. He was questioned about Vice President Kamala Harris possibly replacing him on the ballot. And the response was another slip-up.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, that I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
When Trump took a swipe at Biden for this mix-up, the US president responded by saying he does know the difference, one's a prosecutor and the other's a felon. Biden also struggled to find the words Joint Chiefs of Staff. When he could not find the right words, he used Commander-in-Chief, which in fact is a position the president holds.
And so our military is where I'm following the advice of my Commander-in-Chief, the Chief of Staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people.
It was not all bleak for Biden, though, like this impassioned remark on NATO.
During the week of this summit, several heads of states made it a point in their statements to thank the United States and to thank me personally for all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's already told Putin, and I quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius.
Contrast this with what Trump had to say about the Western military alliance a few days ago.
I went and didn't make a nice speech. I said, what the hell are you doing? Nobody's paying. Nobody was paying. But I didn't want to be obnoxious because I felt, it's the first time I'd ever done this. I didn't even know what the hell NATO was too much before, but it didn't take me long to figure it out, like about 2 minutes. And the first thing I figured out was they weren't paying. We were paying. We were paying almost fully for NATO. And I said, that's unfair, but I didn't want to make a big mess. I was president for about 15 minutes. And I didn't want to, go after NATO as my first thing.
But there is no denying that Democrats are now growing increasingly anxious. At least 16 of the 213 Democrats in the House and one of the Senate's 51 Democrats have appealed publicly to the president to withdraw from the race. Hollywood actor and prominent donor George Clooney has also called on Biden to drop out. Some reports say Biden's closest allies, Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi, have also privately discussed the matter and the future of his 2024 campaign. Opinion polls reflect the nervousness among voters. A Reuters Ipsos poll found Biden and Trump tied at 40% each. A Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll found that 56% Democrats believe Biden should pull out of the race, compared to 42% who think he should continue his campaign. But Joe Biden remains confident. He says he's in good shape and would take a neurological exam if his doctors recommended it. Biden also took a swipe at his competitor Trump, who recently challenged him to a round of golf.
I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. In each case, as recently as February. And they say I'm in good shape, okay? Every single day I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it. But no one's suggesting that to me now.
While Joe Biden is trying hard to hold fort, he remains on shaky ground. With the presidential election drawing close, Americans are left with a tough choice: an often incoherent Biden or a convicted felon.
Moving to Russia, Moscow has expressed anger over Washington's plan to deploy missiles in Germany for the first time since the Cold War. The Kremlin warns that the move will lead to a rising confrontation between Russia and the West. Vladimir Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov said, quote, "We are taking steady steps towards the Cold War. All the attributes of the Cold War with a direct confrontation are returning," end quote. Meanwhile, Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said that Russia cannot be intimidated by such moves and will find a response.
This is aimed against us. Of course, we must be aware of this. But there is no reason for nervousness or any alarm, because we began to prepare for such a development a long time ago. The aggressive course of the United States and the North Atlantic Alliance, led by Washington, is not changing. But we cannot be intimidated. We'll find a response.
Russia also said that Washington's plans in Germany have given Moscow reason to fulfill all its goals in Ukraine. Moscow's warning comes after the U.S. announced at the NATO Summit that it will periodically station long-range missiles in Germany as a deterrent. These weapons will include SM-6 and Tomahawk cruise missiles, as well as hypersonic weapons that have a longer range than current capabilities in Europe. Now, it's important to note this new missile deployment would not have been possible under a 1987 treaty between the United States and the former Soviet Union, which fell apart in 2019. The pact banned the use of ground-based missiles with a range of more than 500 kilometers. Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says the planned deployment of weapons is a necessary and important decision at the right time.
The United States decided to deploy deep precision strike capabilities in Germany, which I think is a very good decision, and it fits into all the decisions we already took. You find it also in the security strategy of the German government and in the agreements that we will have together, for instance, with UK and France to develop our own deep precision strike capabilities. It is something of deterrence, so it's securing peace, and it is a necessary and important decision at the right time.
Now, the announcement of the weapons deployment has led to an outcry in Germany, bringing back painful memories of the Cold War. Critics say the deployment increases the danger of Germany becoming a theater of war. Meanwhile, NATO said that a new U.S. airbase in Poland is ready to detect and intercept ballistic missile attacks as part of NATO's missile shield. Now, with the NATO countries bolstering their defenses on the European continent, all eyes are on Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin's response to the rapid military buildup by NATO. Next, we turn to the Middle East, where after a week-long assault in Gaza City, Israeli forces announced that they've ended their operation against Hamas there. Displaced Palestinian families were forced to flee earlier this week after Israeli forces demanded their evacuation amid an intense military assault. Residents who returned to the ghost town found at least 60 bodies as they picked through the wreckage. Rescue agencies estimated that over 100,000 people have been left homeless, and at least 85% of the buildings in the Shujaiya district are now uninhabitable.
We have nothing, no food or drink. They bulldozed all the houses, and it is not our fault. Why do they hold us accountable for the fault of others? What did we do? We are citizens. Look at the destruction around you. There is no house or anything left for us. Where do we go and to whom?
This upsurge in fighting comes as discussions held in Qatar concluded without a breakthrough. However, U.S. President Joe Biden said that though there were gaps to close, the ceasefire agreement was in fact making progress.
I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close, but we're making progress. The trend is positive, and I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now.
Now, as the complex negotiations for a ceasefire continue, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing mounting pressure back at home. Amid the backdrop of these negotiations, the Prime Minister is battling growing dissent among the people, as well as divisions within the government and military. Fueling the backlash is Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant's call for an investigation into the state's failings, including a probe against himself and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Now, this request comes after the Israeli military published findings of the first probe into its security failings during the October 7th Hamas attack. The IDF acknowledged that it hadn't protected the citizens and admitted they were unprepared for the unprecedented scenario.
The state inquiry must be objective. It needs to investigate all of us, those who make decisions and those who carry them out. It must investigate me, the defense minister. It must investigate the prime minister. It must investigate the military chief as well as the head of security services.
Meanwhile, in Washington, the Biden administration has stepped up efforts to target violent Israeli settlers. The United States has added new individuals and organizations to a growing sanctions list and has warned banks to check transactions linked to all Israeli outposts in the West Bank. Additionally, the U.S. State Department has also blacklisted the far-right Jewish supremacist organization Lahava, labeling it as the largest violent extremist organization in Israel with over 10,000 members. And now moving to South America, Brazil's federal police say the National Intelligence Agency was illegally weaponized when former President Jair Bolsonaro was in office. A 187-page report says that the agency was used to allegedly spy on judges, lawmakers, environmental officials, and journalists between 2019 and 2022. Among those targeted were the head of Brazil's lower house, 4 Supreme Court judges, 2 political journalists, senior officials of the Environmental Protection Agency, and prominent allies of the incumbent left-wing President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The police claim a criminal organization was set up within the intelligence agency under the watch of Bolsonaro's spy chief. And the parallel intelligence wing allegedly accessed computers, telephone devices, and telecommunications infrastructure to monitor and harass people who were considered Bolsonaro's foes. Police say the fruits of this illegal work were transformed into an online disinformation campaign designed to butcher the reputation of the victims and Brazil's democratic institutions. Brazil's Internal Revenue Service, which was engaged in a corruption probe against Bolsonaro's son and sitting Senator Flavio Bolsonaro, was also targeted by the agency. On Thursday, 5 people were arrested as part of the long-running probe. Moreover, it's been reported that the former president's name appears 5 times in the Supreme Court's decision authorizing the arrest warrants. The warrants also mention that one of the suspects said he had a direct line to Bolsonaro. Meanwhile, WhatsApp messages exchanged among the suspects in 2020 and 2022 show that the secret group was targeting adversaries of the Bolsonaro administration. Now, the investigation does not formally accuse Bolsonaro of ordering any espionage, but experts say he could be held responsible if the police manage to link these crimes to him. Now, Bolsonaro's lawyers are yet to comment on the matter, and his son Flavio has denied any knowledge of the alleged scheme. Meanwhile, officials who were allegedly targeted by the Brazilian intelligence agency have expressed shock and anger over these revelations. Now, it's unclear that in the wake of these bombshell allegations, if the former Brazilian president, who was already indicted in an undeclared jury case just last week, will also face charges in the latest spying scandal. And finally, American scientists have drawn inspiration from the sci-fi classic Dune to develop revolutionary spacesuits. These suits, much like the iconic still suits from the film, are designed to turn astronauts' urine into drinkable electrolyte-rich water. The breakthrough could be a game changer for future lunar missions, ensuring that astronauts stay hydrated even on the longest spacewalks. Our final report takes you inside for the latest.
The Dune film franchise is part of a global hit club list. It's got everything: epic battles, political intrigue, and a picturesque desert world. Amid all of this, the still suits featured in the films contribute a major part to its popularity. These sleek, futuristic outfits recycle bodily fluids into drinkable water, perfect for surviving the harsh desert of Arrakis. And who knew that Hollywood sci-fi would influence real-world space tech? So hold on to your spice, because scientists of US's Cornell University are taking notes from Dune. They're crafting a spacesuit that mirrors the film's still-suit technology. If you think this is a cosplay, it's not. We're talking about a serious scientific endeavor here. Imagine a spacesuit that recycles urine into drinkable water, allowing astronauts to tackle lengthy spacewalks on future space missions without packing extra water. So here's how it works. The prototype spacesuit inspired by Dune can transform urine into water almost instantly. The suit uses a vacuum-based external catheter to start the process. This ensures a continuous supply of clean water, and all this to keep the space heroes hydrated and healthy. The suit has been designed in a way that the needs of both men and women are met. It uses a customized silicone collection cup. These cups are integrated into a multi-layered undergarment, ensuring that it's comfortable. The moisture-activated vacuum pump kicks in as soon as nature calls, hence sending the liquid gold into a filtration system. The developers say that water is recycled with 87% efficiency. So how long will the astronauts have to wait for a sip of their recycled water? Just 5 minutes. The system processes 500 milliliters of urine quickly, and the water that comes out is full of electrolytes. Think of it as an interstellar energy drink. Scientists have also kept in mind the size part of the system. They have developed it into a compact system that's light enough to carry on a spacesuit. The current spacesuit offers just 1 liter of water. It's not enough for long spacewalks, which can last up to 24 hours in emergencies. Astronauts say existing waste management is a glorified adult diaper. It's uncomfortable, unhygienic, and prone to leaks. Astronauts often complain about UTIs and the unpleasant experience of wearing a soggy diaper for hours on end. Now the team plans to test it to check how comfortable and functional it is in real life. They will give it to over 100 volunteers in New York this fall. The trials will be conducted in a microgravity condition to ensure that the systems are ready for actual space missions. As we edge close to long-term lunar missions, innovations like these will be crucial. So the next time you see Dune, remember the still suits are now more than movie props. They could be the future of space travel comfort. If this suit is approved, then the astronauts won't have to hold it in anymore. They'll just let the suit do the work.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here next week. Have a great weekend. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.